In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
I'm Max.
I'm Rebecca.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to What the Adaptation. We're the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one form to another. This week, we're continuing with Season 1 of The Witcher, discussing Episode 6, Rare Species, which is based off of the bounds of, the limits of bounds, or bounds of limits. What was it? Something like that.
I think it's the bounds.
I've been having a hard time remembering that one all week.
Yeah.
But what did everybody think of this week's episode?
Good. I like it. I mean, it ends kind of rough, but I like it.
Heavy on the drama.
It is heavy on the drama. Mm-hmm. Hey, I live for drama.
I can make sure that you get plenty of it if you want. No, I'm just joking.
Okay.
I like the episode, despite some of the things I'm going to talk about later. I actually liked it a heck of a lot, but there are issues. There are some serious issues with this episode.
Let's get into it. So we're talking about changes. Start with changes that we liked. Max, you want to start?
Changes we liked.
Yeah.
Or disliked, liked.
I mean, give us what you got.
Well, it's like, one that kind of stood out to me was it looked like they tried to do the Doppler type thing, but without Geralt. They did it with, what's his
Ciri.
face? Yeah.
Well, yeah. What's his face? Mousesack.
Yeah. And I don't know how, like, the whole, halfling and the Doppler thing was just like a funny type of romp of what's going on. And
so you've gotten that far. I couldn't remember which book that was in.
I think that was in these ones.
Yeah.
And like we had that whole thing, and they took that the funniness of the comedic part and took it away for this drama-filled part with Ciri.
Yeah. I'm not really a fan of the Ciri part of this episode. I will say that.
No.
And it's about the Doppler. I mean, one thing they definitely specifically changed, even just aside from the tone, is that the Doppler Mousesack does not seem to know everything that Mousesack knows. Like, that is how Ciri figures out that it's not him. Whereas in the book, a Doppler knows everything that the original knows. Like, they are basically indistinguishable, which I will admit is probably a little bit OP. Like, how are you going to deal with that, basically?
Right.
So I kind of get them changing that. I still don't particularly just enjoy that aspect of it, but I can at least understand why they changed that.
Last week's episode actually even goes as far as saying, when Doppler Mousesack changes after he changes his face, he tells Mousesack, every thought you had, every memory you had, I've got inside me. And this very episode, when Cahir and the Doppler are fighting, the Doppler, after he changes shape, says, I know all your moves. So even this episode solidified the fact that the Doppler should know
I totally forgot about that
everything.
last week.
So
that was just a huge mistake. Okay, well then now you're right. There's no consistency, so I don't like it.
Yeah. So I took the whole part with Ciri, like talking to him, trying to like weed out that he wasn't him, more as him just being annoyed and like not acting as Mousesack, but he was like annoyed over all the pestering Ciri.
So he's just a lazy ass Doppler, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like by reading the book, my first thought was like, when we first saw this Mousesack thing, like, this guy's a Doppler, but like different. Like, he had skin suits and all this other weird stuff. Like, the Dopplers don't need a skin suit to become.
He's straight from his last job in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, if I were to take it from a book perspective, I look at this guy's like, he's not a Doppler, but he's a Doppler. He's like like an aberration of a Doppler or something. Or it's a serial killer one. It's just bad at being a Doppler.
Yeah, and Cahir even says that to him. Cahir even says that to him in the first episode with the Doppler. You're not like the rest, happy-go-lucky.
Mhm.
You know, good-natured, I think was the phrase he used. Good-natured. My bad.
Okay. So this is maybe he's not supposed to be a typical Doppler, but how would we know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and nobody in universe knows that Dopplers are not like what he is. You know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
overall, I have to say, since you reminded me about how it was explained in the last episode, like I don't think that was a great choice. Like they probably should have just changed it if they wanted him to be crackable, like, you know, if Ciri questioning him a tiny little bit could crack him, like they should have changed that part.
Yeah.
More
I mean, they changed enough.
consistently.
They changed enough else.
Yeah. So just changed it consistently. Yeah. Okay.
you know, given like the Nilfgaard thing, they could have went more of like a blood sorcerer type Doppler connection thing. Like they use blood sorcery to become the person.
Mm.
Oh
They
yeah.
could have gone that route.
That's a
And
good idea. Yeah.
I kind of wish
Instead of
they
using
had,
it a Doppler at all. Yeah.
Yep. And I kind of wish they had preserved at least part of the original Doppler story in
Mhm.
some way, just for the comedic elements.
Yeah.
Or maybe at least to see two dandelions to mess with Glenn.
See, Dandelion didn't bother me this episode.
No, I really like him this episode.
He's got crow's feet, but
Ugh.
he's in his 40s, by the way, during the time of the later books.
Okay.
I found that out last. I was doing a bunch of crawling through the timeline on the one Witcher wiki.
Yeah, the timeline is still, you know, a little bit wonky.
Yeah. But yeah, so Yaskir's getting up there. He's getting up there. Yeah. He didn't bother me this episode, but I really did like Yen and Geralt starting off in good relations with each other, relatively, and then switching to bad relationships, because then that leaves it kind of like on a what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do think it could cause some possible problems in the future with their relationship or how they end up getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Like, I think both the story and the episode put Geralt and Yennefer as kind of like a central focus, but they handled it very differently. I liked it a lot better in the episode than I did in the story, because I feel like, I don't know, a lot of it in the story sort of hinged around Yennefer asking Geralt to kill the dragon for her. You know, there's that. And I don't know, it just comes across more like, because we don't have access to her thoughts in the story. We really don't know. It just comes across more like she's using him by that request. Like because at first she's just like, I don't want anything to do with you. She's just mad at him, which, you know, is maybe fair. Like, you know, she might have a good reason to be mad at him. But then she's like, oh yeah, I'll get over all that. You just kill this dragon for me. And it just comes off kind of transactional.
Yeah, it does.
But yet in both cases, they want us to believe that there is something more here, something that we should be rooting for to some extent. And so I don't think it was all that effective in the story, at least this particular one. But in the episode, I mean, we're still a little thin because we haven't seen a lot between them. Like, you know, last episode is the first
right
we see anything. But I think what we did see of them in this episode was good. Like, you know, it did more to sell this relationship a little bit.
Probably my favorite scene of the episode was everything in the tent. From the time he walks into her TARDIS, I mean, tent, it is a TARDIS, but beyond that, you know, from that until he wakes up until they get up the next day and everybody's gone and everything just. And part of the reason why I liked that scene was it's Geralt and Yen at their best with each other, and then it has my two favorite songs from season 1. the Yennefer theme, which I love the Yennefer theme, and then Her Sweet Kiss, Jaskier's song that he sings in the closing out credit. He's singing it at the beginning of the episode. He's composing it. Yeah. And then that's playing in the background during the tent scene. And that's a great song. And I sat and I listened to it like 3 times in a row the last time I watched the episode all the way through yesterday. I just kept rewinding to the beginning of the credits and playing it through because that song just hooks me. The way to toss a coin to your Witcher hooked everybody else, Her Sweet Kiss hooked me.
Well, it's like in Cantor, you have people who are all about what about Bruno, and you have people who are all about pressure.
Can't agree. All right, so we basically kind of like the Yennefer and Geralt changes. Like, I mean, it's, the gist of it is kind of the same, but the specifics play out pretty differently. But the way they end up is pretty different. Like the end of the episode ends very differently. So I'm curious what you guys thought about that part.
Well, like I said, with them fighting at the end, it gives a good thing going forward, but him snapping and biting Dandelion's head off, when it was Dandelion who said, no, we're not taking this job. And then Geralt had to open his dumb mouth just because he saw Yen.
Right.
So he was way off base yelling at Dandelion, at least for this heap of shit that he got into. The other ones, he's got a point there. The Jaskier did screw him over with taking him to Calanthe's feast, and the one last,
well,
it just
depends on how you look at that one, but sure, fair, okay.
But on that,
that was I mean, I get kind of why they're doing that, but like I didn't particularly like the that ending where he's snapping at Jaskier, because I liked the development of their friendship in this episode. Again, in the book they already have that bond, but like we haven't really seen that, so they're kind of look like they're making some progress towards a friendship here in this episode, and then it ends like that. So that was rough. I didn't really love that, but I do kind of like I like the conflict between Geralt and Yennefer at the end of the episode more than I like the conflict that he then took it out on Jaskier, because I mean, she has a point, right? Like about, again, just from what we've seen, like, he just meets her and he makes this wish that ties them together. I can kind of see her her point, why that upsets her a bit, or at least makes her question why, or how she feels, and is it real? So I don't know. I don't mind that.
She's justifiably upset.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that I was glad they made a change on, and that was getting rid of her hanging on his back while he's hanging from the rope over the cliff.
Yeah.
I don't deal well with heights, but spoiler for my scene I didn't like, that bridge. The moment they look out, I don't deal well with heights. Even on TV,
watching it, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even on TV, when they show a shot looking down a great height, I'm like, I can't. My heart starts beating 100 times a minute, 100 times faster, and I'm just like sweaty hands and like white knuckling it. Just even knowing nobody's falling, even knowing it's fake. Because even when it's fake, it's really bad when it's actual footage of real heights and somebody's looking over.
Piece of advice, Glenn: avoid any YouTube clips of the game Mirror's Edge.
Okay.
It's all that.
Yeah, the one that got me the worst was actually a YouTube video of some guy hanging, he video camera in his hand and hanging with his other hand over the side of a skyscraper, and took a shot of himself, put his camera back on and hop back up over. I'm sitting at home watching that, and I could feel it going up and down my spine. I'm just like, no.
I hear you.
So yeah, there's a spoiler for later in this episode.
Okay.
I didn't like that scene.
I think we already know your favorite and least favorite episodes, but I mean scenes in the episode.
And the bridge.
But,
yeah.
Okay, we got it. All right. So we'll just brush through that when we get there. The other change I just, this is kind of broad change, but I feel like we should cover it, is, the way they sort of streamlined the episode and ended up spending a lot more time on the actual like quest to get the dragon as opposed to the lead up to it. So like in the story is like the majority of it is like lead up to it, and then like the last couple parts are the quest itself. And they just streamlined a lot of that, removed quite a few characters, and we got to see them on the quest a lot sooner.
Yeah.
So I mean, overall, I liked all of that. I think those were all effective changes for the episode. And in particular, I am really glad they did away with the scene where whatever that Reaver guy is, like ties them to the wagon and needlessly assaults Yennefer. And we just did not need any of that. So
and Dandelion not looking away.
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of awful. So, I mean, I will say this short story definitely had some of those elements of perhaps unintentional misogyny that, people talk about in these books, because there's that. And for whatever reason, it irked me that much earlier in the story, when they're like, Three Jackdaws is like ordering all this food, and then he's talking about like how Taya and Bea are like watching their figures so they don't need to eat that much, and I'm just like, but why? They're like warrior women. Why can't they eat like as much as they want? Like they probably need to eat a lot, because they should be like muscular. So anyway, that irritated me. Whatever.
Understandable. I've seen online that people were irritated by the fact that the Bork just kind of assumed that the Zerrikanians would be down for some hot tub action and then bedtime action with Geralt.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of imply that that at least one of them is like indicating that she likes Geralt and like it wants to. So I don't really know, because they don't have her talking really. So whatever, but
yeah. In the book, it seems like she's pretty interested in Geralt. But it seems like, the complaint I saw was the complaint that I saw was the person interpreting that scene as Bork saying she's going to sleep with you. No, not being her choice. I'm telling you that she's going to sleep with you, and that's how this YouTuber reacted to it. Yeah. So this is the same girl who said that every short story in the first two books, other than the last two, every time there's a female speaking line, her boobs are described. And I've been tracking that, and it has yet to happen in The Last Wish. I'll be paying more attention to sort of Destin. Even this story, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Gen's chest is never described. Ciri's chest is never described. I still don't see what this YouTuber is talking about with her accusation.
I'm not sure, but I mean, like I said, I do think there are some of those elements, like, and this story in particular definitely had some, because that whole scene with like him assaulting Yennefer was like so needless. Like that was just gratuitous. That should not have been in there. Like, why?
Yeah. Because Dandelion, a reason to be a crude bastard.
But again,
that's Dandelion. Yeah.
Why? It was completely unnecessary. I'm glad they cut that out.
If you think about it, they, by cutting that scene out, they left Dandelion in the wagons.
Yes.
In the episode.
Which was kind of funny. So like, I'm fine with that.
And see, that attack on Yen, and the fact that Zigrin or Yapen Zigrin and his dwarves, his boys, laughed at it in the book.
Yeah, that makes them look pretty shitty too. Yeah.
I'll admit though, here's a spoiler for, I don't remember which book. You see Yapen again.
I have seen him again already.
Okay.
I forget when. I just read
it. But he's not at all. He's actually a fairly good guy.
Right. That's what I thought too. Cause like I remembered him more because I just re-listened to the story, this one, which I didn't remember super well, but I remembered Yapin Zigrin from another, I don't know if it's Blood of Elves, maybe. I think he's
I
in
think
Blood
it
of
is Blood of
Elves.
Elves.
And because I just finished that recently and I remember him being pretty decent. And so that like struck me and I was like, oh, because like in my head, he's like a good guy. And then he did that. And I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. That's not cool.
It should have been one of the other dwarves we meet throughout the series that,
Or
and
just
even with the
not.
relationship Geralt has with Yarpen in this short story doesn't give me reason to think they would be that friendly to each other years later when they meet in Blood of Elves.
Right, that's true. Yeah, that's another good point.
It's just
because they do like they're like friendly at that point. Oh, good.
What you got there?
Kitty.
Oh, it's so cute. All right, we got to take a pause. What's the cat's name?
This is Hinata.
Nada?
Oh,
Hinata.
Hinata.
How's that spelled?
Hinata.
Okay. She's a pretty kitty.
She's a fat kitty.
She's big.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
She's big and glorious.
Well, this is our first pet appearance on our show.
Yeah.
We've got a friend. That. Yes. So, yeah, I like Yarpen later on. And I like Yarpen in this episode.
Well, yeah, right, because he didn't do that in this episode, of course. So, yes, right. He's likable enough in this episode. And in the books, that moment aside. Yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, overall, I would say I like the changes they made in the majority of this episode. And the only stuff I really didn't like was, or at least just am kind of indifferent to don't like, was the stuff in the Ciri part of the episode, which just was not my favorite.
I think of a theme with the TV show so far. Like a lot of the Ciri stuff is kind of on the weaker side.
It is on the weaker side.
It has been the entire season.
Agreed. There've
except
been
when like her
decent episodes, but
except when her grandma's involved, then it's usually better.
It is better. She kind of steals the show sometimes. Yeah.
Toby May is just awesome that way.
Yeah, she does. She does.
It's nothing to say anything bad against the actor. It's just that's the stories they're giving her.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's acting them really well.
Like season 2, she does excellent, I thought.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it'll be more there'll be less of that kind of issue going forward, but
a lot less back and forth, I think.
Yeah. I will say I was kind of on Dara's side when he's like, I'm done with you, because I feel like, he's not wrong. Like, he just keeps helping her and like getting nothing out of that particular bargain. And like, she just seems like she's kind of like, she wants to have a pal, but she's not all that interested in him or concerned with him. So yeah, I was on his side.
She's a little princess. What do you expect?
I guess so. He's not wrong. Any other changes that we wanted to bring up, like that we liked or did not like?
And I'm not so sure if I like or dislike, but there were a lot of weird changes that they made with this. I don't know what to take about how I feel on what they did to Ike and being just that. I mean, he was kind of almost slapstick and how silly he was in this, and then killing him while taking a dump.
I mean, I don't think I enjoyed him that much in the story, so I don't really care. But I hear you. He definitely didn't come out looking good.
I didn't like him that much either, but he just seemed way more of a joke on the show than he was in the book.
Yeah, he was a joke in the book though too. Like, I mean,
it's like a 6 compared to a 10.
Yeah, it was. Yes. He was significantly stupider in the show.
Even he didn't deserve to get his throat slit while taking a dump. That's just that's a step too far. I mean, isn't anything sacred anymore?
It's supposed to show how bad the other guy is.
Right. Yeah, that is true.
But with the other thing that guy did in the book being gratuitous, you could say this is gratuitous too. If him ripping her shirt open in the book is gratuitous, him slitting Ike's throat while he's taking a shit, that's pretty gratuitous too. It was just unnecessary. And I mean, Ike doesn't even die in the book. Ike survives.
No, that's true. He's like injured.
Yeah, he's
'cause
seriously
he
injured.
tries to take on the, well, yeah.
Yeah, when he
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
in. And that's
You know-
probably why they didn't do that scene with Ike later. That would have been expensive, filming the fight with the dragon.
That whole scene, I'm glad they changed that too. Like the dragon, like, let's duel one-on-one, and I just the whole thing of like everyone's sort of on the same team, but they're constantly arguing about who's going to do something because they want the biggest share, and and then they're doing it like one at a time, and they just sort of streamlined the whole thing and really simplified it because there were too many like reversals and beats to it, I think. To try and include.
It was also go ahead.
So one thing I was going to say is, like, you mentioned that they dialed up Ike's thing to 11 for comedic purposes.
Yeah.
Part of that is Dandelion wasn't really that funny this episode.
No,
Maybe.
in the early part.
He was
In
dialed
parts
back.
of it he was, but parts of it he was serious, which I mean, I enjoyed that. Like, I like that he got some serious moments because I enjoy his comedy, but you're right. They shouldn't always be relying on him for that.
And he was really dialed back this episode. Like, he tried to say some funny stuff and Geralt's like growling at him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of missed
for Yaskier this episode.
I kind of missed, the element of having Nightmare actually in the story instead of just referred to. I mean, I didn't like him, but
he's a douche.
I like, he is, and so is his seneschal or his steward or whatever,
Yeah.
And I like the interaction that Pompous Ass had with Geralt. It just the way they played off. I liked seeing the Pompous, court vizier, or whatever his title was. Jackass character, so was the king, but it felt weird that such an important part of the show or of the story is a one sentence reference, referring to King Nightmare, and that takes out everything else in the beginning of the story.
We just don't have time for that. I think they needed to cut out. So there's too many characters in the story to do in an episode.
I think we could have skipped Ciri for an episode.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that, but I still think introducing too many extra characters is not a great idea, because you have those two, and you had that other mage whose name I'm not going to remember how to pronounce. Yeah. And I feel like there's some others too, but because there was that like cobbler guy who like did the poisoning, and I don't know. There's too many characters. I think I'm glad they streamlined and cut.
Fairfield got totally ignored. The other city where the cobbler was from, Sheepsack,
right?
Sheepsack, no,
some kind of ridiculous name.
No, Mousesack, sheep something or other,
sheep something. It's some
sheep
ridiculous
gobbler.
name.
I don't know.
But, anyway, good riddance to all of them. I don't know.
They cut so many characters out of this story, and it's like, I understand why, because each actor you have to hire even an extra that costs money, and hiring them, costuming, makeup,
too much.
hair.
So, I was also going to mention that if you were to just have a Geralt Yennefer episode and like skip out Ciri entirely, then it's like you kind of run the risk the Wheel Time books had, where all of a sudden you don't have like Rand for a whole book.
Yeah.
So,
it's one people episode. Like to, people have favorite characters.
They could have done that the whole season of Ciri, right? Technically, but or maybe not the whole season, but
But then you have an actress you're hired for the role for multiple seasons, you got to kind of have her in there.
Yeah,
we didn't have Yennefer's first episode, and she was hired for multiple seasons, and she's the number 2 name on the list on the call sheet.
No, I do think they probably could have pared down some of the series stuff, because some of it felt like filler, but I'll save that for my least favorite scene in the episode.
I didn't have any changes that I hated. I just scene that I didn't like, and other scenes that I was like, I kind of take some. There was a charm for me to some of the earlier scenes, especially when they're at the barricade at the bridge and dealing with the Decurion and everything. You know, not to mention the fact that it made me look up the word Decurion because I didn't know it beforehand. Should have been able to figure it out when I saw the definition. But I don't know. I just got a kick out of that. You know, without a safe conduct, not letting you pass, and just over and over and over. How about 200? No, that's just bribery, sir. How about 500? Okay, yeah, sure. You know, I kind of chuckled at that listening to the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say that this book, or this particular short story in the book, wasn't really my favorite at all.
No.
Yeah, it's not my favorite either.
It was a lot of talking back and forth, that talking I wasn't interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this wasn't as good, interesting, the conversations.
Yeah.
Episode.
In my opinion, overall, this episode was an improvement on the source story. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so maybe we should because we already know Glenn's favorite scene, and so we can talk about that a little bit. We've got the scene, everything in the tent, and I have to agree
TARDIS.
that really good. Oh yes, in the TARDIS, really good stuff in those scenes, and I think in particular I like the second scene. So when they're lying in bed and they're chatting and stuff. Like there was some really good stuff in there. So those are up there among my favorites as well.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add about that?
The chemistry between those two actors is just immense. I mean,
yeah,
it's a good thing because the show wouldn't work as well if they didn't have great chemistry.
Quite true. Max, did you have a favorite scene?
Thinking about it, not really.
Okay.
Nothing that just stood out as great. It just, to me, this was everything was average about this episode.
Okay. I'm going to shout out the Geralt and Jaskier scene, not the one where Geralt is chewing him out for no reason, but the earlier one where he's talking about do what pleases you, and then he talks about how he's trying to figure out what pleases him. That was Jaskier getting to have some serious moments, getting to see a little bit more development of the friendship between the two. I enjoyed that scene.
Jaskier's better at this point in the TV show than he was for me in the books, because I was still wondering why the frack did Geralt let this troubadour tag along with him everywhere, because Jaskier was nothing but either the cause of trouble for Geralt, getting him into deep shit, or was an absolute utter shit to people, because and he just Jaskier, Buttercup, Dandelion,
whatever your name
everything.
is, dude.
The Bard, not the Bard, the Bowman, but the Bard. He's just not too fun in the first couple of books. And
he has his moments, but he also has his moments where he's not great. So it's
the one with the mermaid. I like Dandelion in the short story with the mermaid.
Oh,
you know the one I'm talking about?
No, I can't remember.
They go to the wedding feast, meet Little Eye, the blonde mage, the blonde sorceress.
No, I don't remember. I'm totally forgetting right now.
Okay.
Is that in?
I think it's in Sword of Destiny. I think that one's in Sword of Destiny.
I feel because I listened to that one and then but I've been re-listening to the stories as they come up, and so I must just, I don't know, that one's not.
And that one's not covered by the show, so.
Right, so I haven't re-listened to it.
It's the one where he goes to he's hired by some lord to be the translator between the Lord and the mermaid that he had fallen in love with, even though they couldn't speak to each other. A little sacrifice. That's the one.
Yes,
a little
I am
sacrifice.
kind of remembering this now. Yes, it's ringing some bells.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to think what show it was. As probably about the time I was reading that chapter, I was watching this one comedy British show. I'm trying to figure out what it's called here. But the guy was sent to a different world type thing, so it has magic and all that. And while I was reading that chapter that particular day, I was watching an episode that had a mermaid in it.
Oh, funny.
So it's that just corrupted that memory entirely.
Yeah.
The TLDR of that episode was they split the human from the fish.
Ew.
And they left the fish in their reality.
Okay.
So
I've not come across that before.
So yeah, a guy couldn't have a relationship with the fish, so they end up eating it.
No, no, it's not. Okay. Wow.
That's not
on
right.
that.
So yeah, that show is called Zapped on HBO Max.
Okay, I'll look for it. Sounds
like
interesting.
2 or 3 seasons. Kind of feels witchery without being, more comedic, less Witcher.
Okay.
Interesting.
Is it better than Raised by Wolves?
I don't know. I only saw like 3 episodes of Raised by Wolves, and I just couldn't get into it.
So where are we at next?
We're at scenes we most hated, or least favorite scenes. So for me, I mean, I've already said like I was just not crazy about a lot of the series stuff. I'm gonna in particular call out. There was a scene where the Doppler looks like the Black Knight, and then they're fighting each other, and I just felt like that was particularly pointless as a scene, and sort of it went on for too long. It was a little gratuitous. Like the only little bits that were dropped in there that were interesting is like another mention of the white flame, which we still, are like, what's going on with that? And, just some little tidbit about him believing in prophecy in regards to Ciri. But I didn't even think we really needed that. I mean, like you had the scene at the end with Fringilla, that same stuff could have been communicated there. I just felt like it was kind of like I'm like, why do I really care? Like these guys are both, I don't mind if they kill each other. Like whichever one of them dies is like, good. So,
Because you don't have any reason to like Kay here.
No,
Not
kill
at
him as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Like I said, in previous episodes of our show, he's being done dirty.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I got no reason to like the guy. So anyway, it wasn't a great scene in my opinion. So
the Kay here. I'll go with you on that. The Kay here fight just that wasn't good.
Nah.
Yeah. Maybe the dragon scene, maybe it wasn't as god awful as I remember it being, but at least the CGI wise, it is.
Mm-hmm.
The green dragon looked better.
I didn't mind it. Like I remembered it probably being worse than it was too. Like it was okay. Like I don't love it, but it didn't like jar me, as far as like it being like scene ruining for me. So it was fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't say scene ruining, but it was a damn ugly design for a dragon too.
On the positive side, they didn't show the dragon moving its jaws to talk, so that was good.
Yeah, that's good.
It wouldn't have done that. It didn't do that in the books either. So
I know.
No,
good thing
she
they
made
didn't.
a point of pointing out that this is by telepathy.
It's telepathy, right? It's telepathy. Yeah.
As I was saying, the good thing they didn't do audible talking, because that would have been really cheesy.
Yeah,
like they're gonna do with Hopper.
We'll see. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, there were some things I liked about that scene. As even especially compared to the books, like the changes we talked about before. But I could see where, like if the look of the dragon bothered you. I mean, that was for me in the previous episode with the Sylvan. That kind of in part ruined that whole scene, because I'm just like, this character looks so bad. So,
and I still have no problem with how Torque looked.
Yeah, I know, we're opposite, because I don't really have a problem with the dragon, and it didn't affect the scene for me, but I did not like the Sylvan.
Well, it's like I said earlier that, my memory on the dragon looked a lot worse than it did rewatching it. Rewatching it, I'm like, did they render this dragon or something?
I wondered that too. And I have heard that some shows have done that, that between like seasons 1 and 2, like I guess Disney with some of their shows on Disney Plus, they've made changes since something was released and like tweaked it, and especially in Star Wars. I remember seeing something about it just recently What it was, I don't recall, but it was something in one of the Star Wars movies.
They got that from George Lucas, just
they moved all
tweaking stuff.
They removed all like the cigarettes and guns from Indiana Jones, right?
Did they?
I didn't know that. I know at one point they removed all the guns from E.T. for the 20th anniversary edition, and people across the world flipped out. And so Spielberg went and put them back in.
It's so weird to do stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, all the guns became flashlights for a short while there.
Okay. Sure. All right. Do what you got to do, but that's so weird. All right. Any other or Max, did you you said you
yeah.
Never mind, I'm losing track. We went through our least favorite scenes. Okay, so moving on. Does anyone want to shout out an actor in this episode, particularly good or bad? What do you got for us, Glenn?
I really like Jeremy Crawford as Yarpen Zigrin.
Okay.
I actually went and was looking up this guy. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's a West Virginian who studied acting in Scotland. So I see where he gets, he's able to have a kind of close to a Scottish accent. Maybe
it was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Pretty close. I'm not sure exactly where the audio narrator, he pulls his dwarven accents from, but it's the Cintrons that are Scottish in the audiobooks.
Right.
But,
right.
I'm sure if you were to travel around Scotland, you'd hear a number of different accents. So they both might be Scottish. I liked him as the dwarf, as Yarpen Zigrin. I got a kick out of all the dwarves, even though none of them had lines. Well, no, that the black one had a line when he was the one yelling for the drink. At the beginning of the episode, in the tavern. But yeah, I thought he was pretty good. I think he was the standout, in my opinion, standout performance.
Okay. It's a good call out.
If I don't go with Anya.
I mean, she could, you could pick her in any episode.
Every episode, yeah.
So I'm like, I'm always hesitant to be like, oh yeah, she was awesome again. Because, she's always good.
She was the best part of episode 1, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I could.
Go ahead.
I said I could toss out Geralt just for his beat down of Dandelion later.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's always doing a good job too. I mean, and maybe he had a little, enjoyment of getting to emote a lot more in this episode than some.
Something beyond grunts.
Yeah. I mean, a little more dialogue. Less
as far as I know, he grunts twice in the entire book, and those are both in this short story. When they're at the tavern, it's like the dinner, the drink.
So what really happened is him, talking to Dandelion was him grunting, and we were hearing what he was saying in his head.
So we were reading his mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
What Dandelion heard was just angry grunting.
All right. Well,
was crushed.
I'm gonna shout out Yaskir / Dandelion / whatever his name is in this episode, because again, I enjoyed his scenes a lot. I felt like they broadened his character a little bit in this episode, and I felt for him in some of these scenes where just the sort of understated you can tell that he's crushed in that last scene, but it's very understated, and he's keeping himself reined in. It was well done.
I'll agree with you there. I'm glad somebody else picked him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get to our discussion of themes and how we think this episode handled any themes from the source material.
Max?
Glenn?
Max? Me first?
Yeah, either way.
I don't know. I think the one that comes to mind first and foremost is, the idea of human greed. We see it from almost the first scene with the spotty-faced man and the butcher trying to make off with Geralt's, pop horse and saddlebag and not paying the bill. All the way to King Nidomir, both in the book and in the short story, wanting this dragon, 2 different reasons, but it's all based on greed for both of them. The Decurion, he was swayed to let them through. Well, he got the payment, but he was also scared by what Dorgeray did. So that was the main theme. I don't think the show handled it nearly as well as the book did. At
I
least
don't think that was a big theme in the episode. No.
Yeah, there really wasn't. The one that the show did that was in the book also, but the show did a little bit more, just even without Dorgeray, because Dorgeray played the part with it, was the idea of them hunting down endangered species.
Yeah.
And that was just through and through this episode as well.
Yeah. Agree.
I mean, it was mentioned a couple of times, rare, and
right.
Villa to Tenworth, to Trend, whatever, Villa to Villain
Good dragon.
Yes, Villa to Trenworth. Also talked about being the last gold dragon, being old, and he's going away, and I think he even mentioned legacy at one point or something like that. So those are the two. Those are the two that I caught.
Okay. Max, did you want to add anything or comment on that?
No, I just comment the whole thing about what you were talking about earlier with the Geralt being a monster slayer, not caring about monsters. When he does, he cares about protecting those that aren't bad monsters, like the Hiraki thing.
Yes.
That the knight just kills for no reason. He's like, put your arms down, and then they just kill it.
King and glory.
Yeah, or you just feed it and it'll be fine. Like
and even before that, like we have instances in the book where Geralt doesn't just straight up kill a monster when he sees it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think
there are some.
There's a pretty big theme in general that he has discretion. That
he values intelligent creatures or sentient creatures. The obvious ones that are 100% kill you on sight are ones he'll kill.
Yeah. But that also, don't forget, I pointed this out a while back. Geralt hardly kills any monsters in the books.
Yeah,
the first
he doesn't
two books.
Do a lot. No.
I think there's maybe 5 monsters. I'd have to go back and count reading each story, but no more than 10, less than 10 monsters between the first 2 books.
It's not a lot. One of them is in this story with the basilisk.
Yeah.
And, as we point out in the show that, they're getting few and far between, so the Witcher's raise prices.
Right.
They used to be cheaper when there are more monsters.
It's harder for them to find work.
Yeah.
As we've seen, as that's kind of a theme that we've seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I do think that was the strongest theme of the episode, is basically like, what is a monster and how do you decide whether something should be killed? And I think that is in the short story, and some of it was taken out because certain characters weren't in it, but they added the part with, what is the name of that other monster again? I'm totally forgetting.
Rocky or
the Hiraki.
Yeah, Hiraki. Yeah. They added that to, I think, punch up that theme a little bit more, which was a good addition to make that clearer. And so I think that theme, it was pretty well done in the episode. And then the other thing that they kind of hooked in at the end was destiny again, which is an ongoing theme, because you have 3 jackdaws, sort of talking about how, Geralt and Yennefer are made for each other, but they are going to lose each other. But Geralt hinting that Geralt has something else out there, which again, I think we all kind of are getting the gist of what that is and where that's going. But so I think that whole destiny angle was brought in again. And again, there was discussion of the child's prize. So that's tied into that as well. And on Ciri's end, as much as I'm like, I find that part forgettable, that, there was discussion of Geralt and being her destiny. So that was woven into.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the Hiraka thing, 3 years before Suicide Squad come out, Witcher did the Weasel, essentially, which I'm putting in Discord chat here for comparison.
Yeah, I will share that on screen at some point here.
And
wow, it is a lot. Wow. Good pull.
And as far as themes go, in the TV show, there's kind of maybe a mirror between the Ciri story with Yennefer and Geralt. And we see at the end of their stories, or sort of ends, that in this case, like both of the women caused the men to break their mask.
Okay. I can see that with the Ciri, definitely.
Yeah. And like Geralt is trying to put on this, could say a mask with Yennefer.
Yeah.
And he's just getting frustrated because...
See, I'd say the opposite is Geralt's taking his mask off when he's with Yennefer.
Either way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but yeah.
I mean, Yennefer has a mask for that matter too, right? Like, you know, and hers does, I think, slip a bit in this episode also.
And if you notice parallels, the Doppler attacks the other guy, and then Geralt verbally attacks Jaskier.
Okay.
So both women caused them to break their mask, and then they took it out on another person.
Okay. I
don't know what that theme means offhand, like right now, but it's
probably maybe, if anything, it's just the parallelism between Geralt and Ciri, you know, because
the two swords.
So you know, that's good. Any other thoughts on theme?
Not really. I mean, this story wasn't that heavy with it, and the
it wasn't.
Episode kind of ignored them for the most part, you know, and just gave like a little bit of lip service to them, at least the ones I picked out. So yeah, that really, this is as much as I enjoyed this episode's still also kind of rather disappointing in a lot of ways.
See, I feel differently. I mean,
there wasn't as much meat on the episode for me.
I mean, I could see that, but if we're just talking about like adaptation wise, like comparing to source material, like I think it was an improvement overall. Like
it might have been.
To me, it was. But anyway, we should probably do our rankings, you know, our ratings for this episode. So how close we think this was to the source material. I'm going to say 6 out of 10, which is a little bit on the lower side compared to some, but to me, that's not bad. Like, I think it's fairly different from the source material overall, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Because as I said, I think there are lots of improvements on the source material in this particular instance.
Max, what about you?
I agree with that.
6?
Yeah. Like I said, that was one of the stories I was least interested in of all the stories. So my memory now it's pretty foggy. I totally forgot about the scene with Yennefer being, you know, strung up. Like I just wiped out my memory when he brought it up. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Glad they got rid of that in the show.
Yeah, that happened, but now it didn't. So
good. People wouldn't like Jaskier nearly as much as they do.
No,
if they kept that.
No, they wouldn't.
And that's just one side effect that keeping that would have had. You know, it would have pissed off a lot of people having to watch, you know, that happen to her while strapped to the wheel of a wagon.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I liked, you know, I feel like Yennefer is more, you know, we get to see more of her perspective in this episode than we do in the story, and that makes her come out looking overall a bit better in this episode too.
Definitely. I'll give this one, and this is why I said, despite what I'm going to be saying later, I'm only going to give it a 3, maybe a 3.5. I'll say 3.5 for accuracy.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think if you were to sit there and write down all the beats that happen in the short story, and then all the beats that happen in the episode, you're only going to get 35 to 40% of them at best.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I think it's more just like, you know, if I thought about like the overall thrust of the episode, you know, the spine of it is there. Like, it's not, you know, so I don't want to take away from that, like, you know, we're not off in some kind of, you know, wild other universe here. Like I recognize it as the same story, you know.
Yeah, it is that. That's why it's not low. That's why I'm not giving it lower than what I'm giving it. I'll say a 3.5.
It's all a little bit, it depends on how you do these ratings, which is I hate ratings. I'm not good at it. Like it's just
people
like
are used to them though.
I get it. Yeah, it's hard for me to give something a numerical value, but I hear it. Yeah.
So yeah,
all right.
I'll go with that.
Yeah. And like overall enjoyment of the episode.
I remember the first time I watched it, I really liked it, except for the CG. But that was long before I ever read the short story or had it read to me. And I like, in a lot of ways, I like the short story more because I like a lot of these discussions that happen throughout the books. You know, for me, that was kind of the revelation when I started reading that there's hardly any action. And it's mostly Geralt just talking. And even in the middle of the conversation.
It's actually not even Geralt talking. It's other people talking around him. He doesn't talk that much.
He does. On the show, he hardly talks at all. But he talks quite a fair bit in the book.
More so. But I'm telling you, there's still an awful lot of people talking around him in these stories. Yeah. It is a good percentage of it.
Definitely. But, you know, I was surprised that there was that much talking in a book that there's an action video game based on it, role-playing game based on it.
It is true.
And I'm just like, and just like I said, there's hardly any monster hunting throughout the books, or even on the show. But you know, I was led to believe that he was a monster hunter. He is, but he doesn't do that. You know, but what was my other point I was going for there? Somebody else go and I'll try to remember my point.
I'll just say, like, you know, I would say my enjoyment of this episode, you know, prior to having read anything was, you know, maybe like a 7 or so. And like, I actually think I enjoyed a little bit more. So maybe bumping it up to like a 7.5, factoring in the changes from the source material, just because, again, I feel like they took out some things that I'm glad they took out. And they, you know, I mean, again, there's parts of it I don't love. I don't love the series stuff, but, you know, still like on the whole, if I think about, you know, how they handled certain things like Geralt and Yennefer in this episode, like, I think it was good changes. So it makes me like it a little bit more.
I remembered my point real quick that I was missing. Not only is the books have and even the short story, but mostly the books have so little action compared to what I thought, that most of the dialogue is not interrupted by action. You know, you infer things that are happening that happen in the scene based just on the way people are responding to each other in conversation with just dialogue. And I really liked how Sapkowski did that, you know, that there's just a lot of different things throughout the first couple of books, and then later that they'll be talking and it's just a constant back and forth, but you're picking up that there's action. I mean, not like combat action, but like things are being done, things are happening in the room as they talk to each other. And Sapkowski just doesn't describe that, whereas Robert Jordan would have taken 2 pages describing what they were doing while also interspersing the conversation, you know. And it would have just been a lot messier. And a lot of people do that too. But yeah, I'm surprised at how little Sapkowski does action in the middle of his conversations.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's, I mean, everybody probably has their own like ideal balance as far as like conversation and action. And, you know, too much action, like description of action in a book is not great either, because like it's taxing on your imagination to try and visualize it when it's very heavy on that. But I do think, you know, in these, they maybe lean a little bit too much on the dialogue and a little too away from action. Like, because it just depends. Like, if the characters that are in the dialogue I'm invested in and I am really like interested in what they're talking about, then I love it. And if it gets into the more random people that I'm having trouble keeping track of, like who this person is and who are the people they're talking about who aren't even there, then I lose the train of that a little bit, and so it could be too much.
I'm kind of reminded of I want to say the very first episode where Geralt kills those men. There's in the book, he has a similar scene described inside a bar, and he kills them. Like, he describes it like 20 words or something.
Yeah.
It's like the sword flashes out and like heads roll or something, and it gets done.
Right.
And I'm kind of reminded of that. As far as how I'd rank the episode, when I first watched it back when it first released, I probably gave it like a 5 because that CGI just was horrible.
Yeah.
And when I rewatched it like just today, I'm like, it's not nearly as bad as I remember it being. And Glenn has pictures of what I thought I remember it looking like, and it's like, that's just
better than that. It's way better. Yeah.
Way better than that. And so taking that out of the equation, it probably put it around that 6.5, 7 area of, it's just an average episode. If this were like a 13, 14 episode season, this would be like one of those mid-drawl episodes where it's like,
right.
Okay.
Could miss this week, I wouldn't notice.
And I was actually surprised how good that dragon from the old Hexer TV show looked. Because I've seen I've seen scenes from that show. Oh no. I'm glad that the Netflix, executives didn't watch those shows. I would hope before, when Lauren went in with this, hey, I want to do this show. Because if they'd seen that show, they probably would have said no.
Well, see, I'm reminded of 96's Dragonheart, and to me that had so much better graphics than the Hexer one.
Yeah,
but it was major motion picture
budget difference.
But you know what? It was Dragonheart was still better than what we got this episode too, though.
Not really. At least when I was looking at it, I was like, no.
Okay.
Graphic wise, it was decent compared to what I remember.
I didn't care for the dragon design in Dragonheart either, so
6 limb versus 4.
They were out too much to have it look like Sean Connery. So,
one other thought, you were talking about how much Geralt talked or didn't talk in the books. Part of me wonders. One of the book series I've read over the years is the Dritz saga.
Yep, just
the Dark
Elf.
Yep. I kind of would like to see what would happen if those two met and just talked philosophy. I think that'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah. Although there's one other character that would be, and it's from a totally different genre, and that's Jakar, Citizen Jakar from Babylon 5. Yeah, throw him in there too. If anybody's watched Babylon 5, you know what I mean.
It's been a while, but yes, I have seen
it. That man's a philosopher.
Yeah.
No, the real question is, would this be like having like Hodor and a bunch of other silent characters talking with one word? Just, it'd just be silence, but they'd understand each other.
Give them 3 words so you can include Groot.
Okay.
But like, what do Dritz and Geralt, they all like stare at each other and they know what they're thinking, or just grunt and they understand. And that's it.
Okay, it's riveting. Let's see it.
Definitely
put it up there.
That would also be a show that would be probably very difficult to put on TV.
Oh yeah, it would be expensive.
And there's other issues.
Although, to be honest, there's a show that I'd really love to see made, and I think they could do it. It would have to be on like a major network or streamer, and that'd be Dragonland. Live action, the original 2 Dragonlance trilogies.
Yeah, wonder if they ever would.
I think they could kick that out in about 5 seasons.
Well, there is a new Dungeons and Dragons movie coming out here in the next, 10 years.
Next year or so, I think. I think it's supposed to be out by next year or sometime by the end of next year, I think.
They've been talking about it for like a decade.
There's been different projects in the works. It's been multiple different D&D movies.
Yeah. So that's probably as close as we're going to get for a while. Especially with that IP having so many issues with Wizards of the Coast, which is interesting that there was a talk recently about Wizards possibly splitting off from Hasbro.
I hadn't heard that.
I think it was like they were talking about it.
Okay.
Because if they did, it would like they'd value like Wizards of the Coast like $100 a stock, and Hasbro would stay the same. So everybody would go up $100.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but it'd be interesting, and I'll open them up to more possibilities, especially for movie rights.
Yeah, I really want to see Dragonlance done on screen, preferably live action. I was going to watch the animated Dragonlance movie, but I had several different people tell me that you'll want to tear your eyeballs out.
Okay.
So
well,
I'm like,
not a rave review.
And I do believe Wizards did allow, was it Margaret and what's his name?
Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman.
Yeah, to make
Hickman.
another set of books.
Yeah, they just put out, or they have another one. They have a couple more coming out, I think.
Because, related to that whole thing is they had basically canned all their authors. Mm-hmm. And there's like a 2 or 3 year lull with like no books. Also, we started getting some again.
Yeah.
Because Salvatore is a powerhouse for books. He's probably up there with Brandon Sanderson, how fast they write.
Yeah, and Hickman and Weiss weren't even supposed to write those books.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, TSR was trying to license out to established authors, and they just were never happy with what was sent back to TSR. And so Tracy and Margaret, they worked there on the product development team for the Dragonlance stuff, and they started working on it in secret, and then plopped it on their boss's desk one day, said, "Here you go."
Yeah, I know that's way off topic at this point.
We should wrap up because we got 5 minutes left. So so I'm just gonna bring us back to
Sorry.
That's okay. Any other final thoughts on this episode?
Well, I would just gonna say that for my overall score on the episode, I'll give it a 7, and I was gonna give it 7 also for how I felt the first time I read it, and what I would feel like without having read the first time I watched it without having read the book. That would also be a 7. So I'm going like a 3.5, a 7, and a 7.
Okay.
For this episode.
There you have it. All right. Well, I think that does it for us for this episode.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Right? I think so. If I remember correctly, I forgot to write down what the episode next week is. Max, you got that real quick? What I'm saying by it? No, never mind. I'll put it on the screen. Everybody, thanks for watching, and please leave us a like. Maybe hit that like button under one profile, sign into another, and hit the like button again. But that would be awesome. Please leave us some comments. Been getting some comments on some of our older episodes. Having fun interacting with people there. And I appreciate Rebecca and Max for joining me on this adventure. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to be awesome.